to call tonight's meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Searcy,
Here.
Councilmember Fulcher, Councilmember DeBala,
Yes, present.
Councilmember Gibson,
Here.
Councilmember Siemens,
Present.
Councilmember Honzak,
Present.
Councilmember Small,
Yo.
and I know Councilmember Fulcher is here somewhere.
Sorry. Yo.
So tonight, I apologize. So tonight, I actually want to start by addressing the elephant in the room. Effective February the 13th, 2023, City Manager Jamal Fox resigned from his position as the city manager with the City of Tacoma Park. Mr. Fox was hired in 2021 for a specific and critical time of transition for the City of Tacoma Park. City Manager Fox stated it has been a privilege to work alongside the professional and dedicated staff, community members, council, and senior leadership team. And I just want to say that the City Council thanks Mr. Fox for his service and to the city, and wishes him the best in his future endeavors. And we are grateful to Deputy City Managers Greg Clark and Roz Grisby for your support during this time of transition. One of the things that I can't stress enough is my commitment to this city and the commitment of this council to ensuring that the City of Tacoma Park is not only a great place to live, but it's a great place to work. And we're doing everything that we can to manage this transition so that we can continue to elevate all of the wonderful staff that we have here in the city and creating those opportunities for them to continue to serve us as they do so well currently. So I just ask for all of your patience as we are moving through this transition. There may be a little bit of a lag with emails, but we're going to get back to you. And we're really focused on continuing to provide great service to the people of Tacoma Park. So with that, I would like to note a quick change in the agenda. So tonight, we will be adding a resolution designating an acting city manager for the City of Tacoma Park. And that would be the resolution that we would need to make sure that Deputy City Managers Clark and Grisby are able to sign off on the necessary documents needed to keep the city running. I will say, I should stress enough that we are doing everything in our power to work to identify an interim city manager, but during that time, while we are actively in our recruitment, we will be relying heavily on our wonderful senior leadership team to continue to serve us well. So thank you again, Roz and Greg, for your dedication to the city and the work that you're doing. So that is one adjustment to the agenda for tonight. Followed by, we will have a legislative update. As well as tonight, we will be adopting minutes from January the 9th. We will have a single reading ordinance authorizing execution of the contract for the roof for the recreation center. And then we will have work sessions on board and committee appointment recommendations, as well as a discussion of the city attorney contract amendment regarding fees. In terms of upcoming council agendas, just as a reminder, Monday is President's Day, so city facilities and offices are closed Sunday and Monday for the holiday. But of course, our police department is always available to respond to emergencies. On Wednesday, February the 22nd, our normal city council meeting, we will have a proclamation for Lee Jordan Day, which is on February the 23rd, a legislative update, a public hearing on traffic calming at 2nd Avenue for a speed bump there, as well as a presentation on the 2022 election report and debrief by our Board of Elections. We will also have a voting session, resolutions providing for appointments to boards and committees, as well as a single reading ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to the city attorney's contract. The work session will continue with the traffic calming on Second Avenue. And we're also tentatively slated to discuss an overview of the process for traffic calming requests and sidewalk requests. On March the 1st, we will have a Women's History Month proclamation, as well as a presentation from the county on the mapping segregation project, as well as a voting session, the first reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on Second Avenue, as well as a work session regarding budget amendment number 5. And then for March the 8th, we will again have a legislative update. Second reading ordinance approving installation of traffic calming on Second Ave. First reading of FY 2023 budget amendment number 5 and stormwater budget amendment number 2, as well as a work session discussing amongst council members council priorities, and that's where we will work to start finalizing our priorities for the city. And so with that, is Ann available? Our legislative, perfect.
I am.
Hello, Ann. I want to turn things over to you to provide us with our legislative update.
Great, thank you so much, Mayor. So we are at that point in the legislative session where kind of the first phase is over. That phase being when the bills get introduced. So we hit the introduction deadlines. Now, bills will still continue to be introduced, but at a much slower rate. And bills that are introduced now also have additional hurdles to go through before they can move forward. But we also had a really tremendous number of bills. We had over 1,200 House bills introduced and over 900 Senate bills introduced. And that's not actually large for like the end of session. It's a lot for this point in session. So we're still working our way through all of those bills. Just of note, I mentioned last week that Councilmember Small had testified on a bill related to unlawful restrictive covenants. He will be testifying again tomorrow on the bill on the Senate side. And Mayor Searcy, I believe you will be able to testify on Delegate Janelle Wilkins' bill on just cause eviction, enabling legislation that would allow counties to create just cause eviction laws to prevent really creating unstable neighborhoods. And so those are coming up. And then we've had already some hearings on some of our priority bills. And there's going to be a lot coming up in the next few weeks. So we'll be continuing to work on identifying and hearing from you all on the city council where some of the priorities are on the bills that are in the bill chart. That's it. It's a short one tonight.
Wonderful. Are there, okay, Councilmember Small.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Hi, and as you can see, I'm doing a little moving around and whatnot, so it's one of those kinds of days. But I wanted to ask you about some administrative things regarding the committees that I figured I'd just ask you while you're here. At the end of the testimony last time, I did deliver the anecdote about our listserv. And so because of that, I forwarded that email to the author of that email thread to the author of the bill and to the chair of the committee. All things considered, I would have rather not done it that way, but it worked out that way. Is there, other than me just forwarding you the emails for you to provide your magic with, is there some way you would like for me to give you that information in advance of tomorrow?
You are welcome to do that, but if you want to give me a call in the morning, I'm also happy to
talk with you about it.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anne. I know that I have a draft testimony in my inbox that I will be working on with you. And I just wanted to just triple check on where the ranked choice voting.
The bill hasn't been voted on yet. We had the hearing, Matt Ling from the Board of Elections did testify on it. It has not been voted on yet.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I guess this is a short one tonight.
They all won't be, but thank you.
Wishful thinking, right? All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Have a good night. Okay. All right. So now we have public comments on voting items. Do we have anyone who has any comments on any of our voting items for tonight? Okay. Any general public comments?
Maryland has now published constant yield tax rates. I've done the math so that you don't have to. I'm also submitting this comment in writing. A reminder that people do not pay tax rates, they pay tax bills, which are based on both the rate and assessed values. I hope council members will focus on and talk about tax bills in this year's work. The Tacoma Park constant yield rate is 51.83 cents per $100 of assessed value. This is the rate at which total taxes collected in the next budget year would be the same as this budget year, about $14.5 million. If the council continued the current 53.97 cent rate, it would represent about a 4% increase in property taxes. The December to December increase in the employment cost index was 5.1%. A rate of 54.62 cents would result in a matching increase in property taxes. The 2023 federal cost of living adjustment was 8.7%. A rate of 56.7 cents would result in a matching increase in property taxes. And in order to increase tax revenue by about $2 million, the amount the council approved as a draw on reserves this budget year, the tax rate would need to be 59.15 cents, increasing property taxes by about 12.4%. If, in April, the acting deputy city managers present a maintenance of effort budget without a draw on reserves, I expect that budget to include a property tax rate around that final 59-cent figure. As was true in November, I hope the council will provide the managers with guidance on the rate it hopes to see and suggestions for how to achieve that rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other general public comments? Okay, thank you. Council comments?
You can do Randy first.
Councilmember Small?
Thank you, Mayor. You can put up the time this time. I'll try to keep to it, I promise. So yes, in case anybody's at home looking, I do have on a Kangol and a sweatsuit. It is Black History Month, and hip hop is 50. I'm going to be 50 next month, and so I figured it would be like a good thing to do. And the other reason for that is that I do understand that it is important for a person to not take themselves super seriously as both a person and or an elected official. In particular, I used to anecdotally say to people among the staff that I was doing an experiment to see whether or not sitting 9 inches in the air would drive me crazy. Because anecdotally, I used to be on the other side of this thing, and that was how I used to roll. Nonetheless, I think it's important to say that not taking oneself seriously is not the same as taking the responsibilities associated with your position seriously. And it's important to say that, particularly in this outfit, because it's probably not something that people would have normally assumed. But part of the reason for that is that everybody has a right to participate in their government under whatever circumstances they present themselves, as long as they comport themselves with regard to their positions with some earnestness. And I just wanted to say that over the past couple of weeks, in trying to get to know where the staff is on their respective projects and the gaps in service and gaps in employment, and the relative screws that I tried to turn in that regard, it's because it's important to take the process seriously. Otherwise, you don't have a government. You just have people who are walking around doing their jobs. And that's wonderful, but it's also not the way the system is set up. And so I just wanted to say that I am always really profoundly impressed at the manner in which the senior leadership team comports itself under trying circumstances. And the manner in which regular public comments that happen in here happen. And the way, in particular, the long-term efforts of both Jesse and the members of this council. But also, I just want to say again, I am very, very much impressed with how you run the show, Talisha, and it's important for me to say that while I'm dressed like this and you're dressed like that.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Three different points. I had the opportunity of participating in the Council of Governments meeting last week, the Farm and Agriculture Committee, and I found it really great that we could work across the Potomac with DC and Virginia on issues as important as improving and assisting our farmers to produce the crops that we need, as well as on the other side, focusing on food insecurity. So this particular committee is focused on both doing what we can across jurisdictions to produce the food, to take care of the climate, and to make sure that people have food to deal with the food insecurity issue. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. Today, I was able to join some of city staff and Donna and her team, which were at Victory Towers in Ward 3, where the staff are taking the direct cash assistance program to the people. There are people there that are disabled, and not that I had a big role at all, but I did encourage it, and the city responded and is going to various multifamily housing, apartments, et cetera, to take this program to folks that can't necessarily get here themselves. So I was really impressed. There was 4 or 5 staff and help assistance, good feeling, and it was well attended at the time that I was there. Lastly, I want to mention that the city council and our mayor in particular and my colleague here have focused on post office delivery issues that are hampering, which are serious. People not getting mail for, sometimes it might seem weeks at a time. So we're working closely with Congressman Raskin's office to address that. I've personally contacted Supervisor USPS, and I know that he has come out and personally walked the walk in some of our wards and streets. So I'm grateful for the mayor's leadership. Councilmember Dabala and I pulled together some 20 different streets that have been affected by this untenable mailing situation. Thank you.
Councilmember Dabala.
Yes. speaking of COG, I have a few things today, so bear with me. Speaking of COG, the Transportation Planning Board met today, and if you recall, when former council member Costick was on it, she talked about a long-range transportation plan and how it was missing an emphasis on the region's climate goals. So there was an insistence that the planning process get redone, started again, and so we're starting. So today was the kickoff, reviewing the first set of documents, the first set of papers about what the scope of the requests for projects are. And so anyone who wants details can have them to the tune of as many as 350 pages. But the bottom line is the planning, long-range planning process for projects is starting. The scope is a little bit bigger, so bikeways, pedestrian walkways, this kind of stuff fits in when it might not have before. And the emphasis is going to be a little different, a little broader connection to the overall regional goals, not just transportation, but all the other goals. So those are the two key points for the casual listener. So I was pretty happy with the outcome there. Secondly, in other climate-related news, the Maryland Public Service Commission is in the midst of a comment period for the Community Choice Aggregation Program. And I've drafted a letter for the city to send commenting on how the PSC ought to proceed with their approach to regulating this county-level pilot program. Should they embrace a different model that's been tried in other states for these innovative programs, or should they stick to the way they do things in Maryland with private sector utilities? That's the two choices essentially. And we are weighing in on the little flexibility would really go a long way end of things, because we'd like to see this program for community choice energy get going. It makes a big difference in our greenhouse gas emissions picture at the city and the state level. Third, EPA funding for climate change. And there is a small, but hopefully we will qualify, small pot of money from EPA among the many pots of money associated with the Build Back Better law. There's one specific to climate change planning and stakeholder engagement processes for a plan you've already started are an option. So I listened with Councilmember Fulcher today, who also joined me for the Transportation Planning Board as the alternate. Listen to the rules of who's eligible, how and when, and whether we might, bottom line, whether we could get some money out of this. And I'd like to wrap up by echoing the mayor's comments about the transition here and thanking especially the senior leadership team, Jesse, Roz, and Greg, for your patience and your forbearance with this situation. But I think we can all pull together and come to a good place. That's it. Sorry to run a little long.
Councilmember Honzak?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo the staff and say thank you to all the staff, not just the senior leadership team, but particularly Roz and Greg in this difficult time of transition. I mean, we are really have so much gratitude for your leadership and your willingness to step in right now, as we do for every single staff member, and thank you. So, and then I wanted to just talk quickly about Ward 5 scheduling and other issues. There has been some, there were some weapons discharges in our neighborhood that left a lot of people feeling really uneasy, because there had been some weapons discharges also back in December in a similar part of Ward 5. I know that people are feeling uneasy. This is the first time in Ward 5 since I've stepped in that I got flurries of emails and phone calls. And I'm just really grateful to Chief Duvall for immediately recognizing that this we could do something as a city to respond. And the deputy is going to step out on Thursday, in spite of a very hectic and challenging week for everybody, and come in and talk to our neighborhood just about these issues for now. And we're going to continue to plan a March 13th meeting on broader Ward 5 public safety and policing issues. So thank you, Chief Duvall, and thank you everyone in that department, and Deputy Philippos. I also had the chance to attend the Purple Line MTA Community Advisory Team meeting last week for Silver Spring, which I understand happen approximately every 6 months. It was a good chance for me to step into one of these meetings and see what happens. It had pretty good attendance, but there weren't too many people from inside the city. But it was very helpful to hear some of the closures that are going to be affecting us quite long term, for definitely those who use some of those transit routes, such as heading to Silver Spring International Middle School. That turning point there that goes towards the school from the creek is going to be closed for at least a year. That seemed like an awfully long time to me, which puts a lot of the traffic, it pushes it onto Piney Branch, and most of the people, therefore, that are going to be going that particular route to go that direction are going to probably be heading on Dale. I just want people to be aware of that heavy traffic point. I have not had a chance yet to observe what that's doing to traffic flows. They said it just happened, but the fact that it's going to be there for so long made me think we need to just be thinking strategically as a city. Is there anything else we need to do? So, thanks.
Councilmember Fulcher?
Yeah, I just also want to speak to I know that there's been an increase in violent crime in Ward 1 as well. And I just want to encourage residents to reach out to myself and to reach out to Chief Duvall, and even better to reach out to both of us when you're sending emails, because he really is the expert on what's going on, and I'm your advocate. And so, both of us would like to know, how we can help you. So reach out to me. I'm going to be speaking to Chief Duvall tomorrow to find out some more specifics about which we should all be doing in Ward 1.
Councilmember Gibson?
Just one additional comment. I wanted to thank our one commenter, Mr. Olson, for being here and for his diligence in looking at our budget. I really appreciate it. I'm on the learning side of the budget process, and you bring a lot of a wealth of knowledge to the table, and I appreciate that very, very much.
Great. So I want to thank Author David Olson as well. I appreciate our ability to geek out over the budget via email, so I look forward to, and that is a technical term, I look forward to us having these exchanges over the next few months as we're working through the budget. Your insights are always extremely helpful. To echo Councilmember Honzak, I want to encourage, our police chief has issued a statement to just provide a little bit of additional overview around all of the things that we're doing to protect the residents in our community. We've seen an uptick in crime in the community, but just, we want to make sure that people feel safe here. Our numbers are still lower than our surrounding areas, but just one incident is more than enough for folks in our community should have to expect. So definitely encourage people to take a look at the statement. There's been a number of community meetings, many of which have been recorded and are posted. And as Councilmember Fulcher and Honzak stated as well, if there are incidents, please feel free to reach out to your council members, the chief, as well as myself, and we're happy to make sure that one, you're getting the response that you need from our police department, and two, that if it's helpful for us to bring the community together to talk about these issues, we're willing to do so. On a separate note, I had the pleasure of reading Llama Llama Red Pajama on Saturday. it's an amazing book. I actually bought it. I was like, I love this book. And I asked my nephew, he had it. He said, of course, we do it at school. I was like, okay, well, it'll be here at TT's house. So the Tacoma Park Middle School had a used book sale, and I had the opportunity to read to a number of the young attendees. So that was very, very exciting. I got to meet a lot of 3 to 4-year-olds, which was great. And also want to thank Let's Play America for the play day that happened on Sunday. It was amazing. The bands, the School of Rock band was awesome. They were amazing. And it was just so great. It was perfect weather. It was raining outside, which meant that a lot of parents were looking for things for their children to do. And so we're very, very, very grateful for our city staff. We saw so many of our wonderful rec staff and others that were here helping out with the event. But definitely want to thank Let's Play America for the wonderful event that was so much fun for so many of our residents. Also, just as a quick heads up, I will be attending the Maryland Mayors Association Winter Conference for the next 2 days. I will still be available, but I will be learning and able to network with other mayors in the state. So I look forward to that opportunity. And with that, I will turn things over to Deputy City Manager Grisby, who will provide the city manager comments for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Searcy. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce to the council and the community our new ARPA manager, Andrew Bolduc. He is here in person and hopefully will say a few words. He's been on the job 3 days. Be kind. He comes to us from the city of South Burlington, where he's held many different roles, worn many hats in that context. So welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm still learning what the copier is, so still very brand new for me. But anyway, it's an honor to be here, and thank you all for this opportunity to serve this community. I've been serving municipalities for about eight years now. As Roz mentioned, I'm from South Burlington, Vermont, which is a community of a little over 20,000 people, which was, this makes it the second largest municipality in Vermont, believe it or not. It had a grand list, about a little over $4 billion annual budget of $56 million, including general fund and the 3 enterprise funds. There, most recently, I served as the deputy city manager and city treasurer, also overseeing the expenditure of the city's $5.6 million ARPA funds while there. Prior to that role, I had the opportunity to serve as its city attorney for 5 years, along with a deputy city attorney. It was an appointed by council position, but a little bit unlike here, it was an in-house role as part of the senior leadership team under the city manager. Anyway, very excited to be here and look forward to meeting you all.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and we are very excited to have you. There's tons of work that's happening in our ARPA portfolio, and we definitely appreciate the wealth of experience that you bring to the position, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
There's a ton of work on our portfolio was a really nice way of putting, there's a ton of work for you to do.
You will be busy. So, welcome.
There's lots of ways to spend money.
Deputy, no other comments. Wonderful. Okay, so with that, we can move forward to the adoption of minutes. Council members have received the minutes from January the 9th. City Clerk, is there anything that we should note regarding the minutes, or are we free to move forward?
Not that I'm aware of.
Excellent. Okay. Would someone like to move adoption of the minutes from January the 9th? Excellent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Fulcher, Councilmember Gibson moved it. Councilmember Fulcher seconded. All those in favor of adopting the minutes from January? Excellent.
Yes.
Can I just say, Jessie is, like, she's always working so hard on those minutes, like all the time. She's like, no, I'm not quite ready for them. Like, she's a real perfectionist, and I really appreciate that.
That was a compliment.
That was a compliment.
So many times where I'm like, I mean, we're fine with it, but she's like, no, they're not good enough. Like, I'm not done.
Awesome. So just for the city clerk, we have all those everyone that is here is in favor of moving, approves moving. Councilmember Small abstain. Okay, so let's move into our voting session. So as I mentioned, we had a last-minute ad in terms of a resolution designating and acting, a resolution designating an acting city manager for the city of Tacoma Park. And I'm just going to read the language. The city attorney should have shared that resolution with the city clerk for posting, but I will read it aloud just so that all of my colleagues know. And again, this resolution is just ensuring that due to the city manager's resignation, that we are able to ensure that our deputy city managers have the ability to sign on the, to sign for things such as keeping bills paid while we are in search of our interim. So I'll read this aloud. So resolution designating an acting city manager for the city of Tacoma Park. Whereas the city of Tacoma Park charter and code envision the role of city manager being occupied, and whereas council is tasked with ensuring the role of city manager is occupied, and whereas the former city manager resigned on February 13th, 2023, and the city manager position is vacant, and whereas the role of deputy city manager is being shared by 2 acting deputy city managers, and whereas it is necessary and desirable to the extent feasible under the circumstances to clarify roles and responsibilities within the city government, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Tacoma Park, Maryland hereby directs Rosalind Grisby and Greg Clark in their capacities as acting deputy city managers to assume the role of acting city manager of the City of Tacoma Park until such time as the acting city manager is appointed. And be it further resolved that this resolution is being construed as vesting the responsibility, authority, and duties of the city manager position to Ms. Grisby and Mr. Clark until such time as it is rescinded or superseded. So again, this is to allow council to authorize our deputy city managers to, in essence, sign the necessary materials needed in the stead of the city manager. So would anyone like to move this resolution?
Mayor, can I just have a question?
Sure.
I just don't know how this works. Do you both have to sign it?
No, because this is a resolution.
No, I mean, when they sign for the city manager, do both acting deputy managers have to sign it?
No, they have
one or the other?
Yes, they have their current division of duties in terms of the offices that they are responsible for.
Oh, very good. Then I move that it be forwarded.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the resolution designating the acting city manager for the city of Tacoma Park, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. And so this, again, I just want to reiterate, this allows for our deputy city managers to continue to move forward in managing the city as you have been doing. But this is just making sure that the council has provided the necessary authorization for you to continue to do so. Now, we're going to move on to the single reading ordinance authorizing execution of a contract for the Recreation Center roof replacement.
Before we do that, may I comment on one? I would appreciate it if the city clerk can send that. I'm sure you will, but to please send that round in writing to us and the city managers when you acting, those two, when you can. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we have our Director of Public Works, Daryl Braithwaite, here. I know that we had lots of conversation last week about the roof. Is there anything that you would like to inform the council regarding this particular resolution that is before us tonight?
Sure. I think one of the topics that came up, raised by Councilmember Hanzak, was why the choice of the particular roof type that we had selected from our contractors. So I did have an opportunity to reach out to a couple of vendors, as well as doing some research with roofing associations just to gather some information. Again, I am reporting what I gathered, and it's my best knowledge. I'm not a roofer by trade, so I'm just gathering information as I can. Just to recap, we did have quotes from 5 different roofing contractors, all of which specified a TPO roof. Not necessarily because that's what I asked for. We met with each of them individually. They saw the facility. They did some exploration into the roofs, and this was based on their recommendations. Based on a quick look on the internet, the products are similar but different. Both are a single-ply application that's used primarily in flat roofs. The TPO is white in color, and it adheres slightly differently. It's mechanically attached to the decking of the roof surface, and then it is bonded together using heat-sealed seams, so it's kind of a welded seam approach. EPDM is typically black in color. It can be coated so that it's reflective, but the fact that it is a more rubberized surface is both a benefit and a detraction in some ways. It gets stretched over the roof surface. It is generally recommended for cooler climates because of its absorption of heat, given the nature of the color of it. And the seams are bonded with an adhesive or a seam tape. So based on what I was able to gather, it's a little less resistant to both UV issues as well as shrinkage. And the seal reliability tends to be a little less trusted than with the TPO, which has the heat-sealed melded seams. They're both considered cost-effective options for roofing. The information I reviewed didn't indicate a strong preference one way or another in terms of unit price. It primarily is driven by the preference of the installers, of the roofing companies themselves, and their comfort level with the application and what they're using it for. In the references I did look at, TPO appeared to be more commonly used, though not quite as had the age span of some of the other roofing types. It's considered to have an advantage over EPDM in reference to durability and flexibility. It's considered more resilient to punctures and less affected by shrinkage. Primarily that has to do, as I mentioned, with the heat impacts and the color rendering. For EPDM, you can get it coated so it has a reflective surface so to try to counteract that UV issue, but that is something that needs to be then redone. So once it becomes a maintenance and inspection issue over time. TPO does not have that need for the recoating, as the substance itself is reflective. They all need to be, roofs always need to be inspected, but the consequence and the severity of potential problems with the EPDM seem to be a little more significant than what you find with TPO. That said, you would fully expect a roof to last long enough, before you start experiencing those kinds of things. But the information I'm providing is just generic in nature. But based on those reasons and based on the conversations I've had with the contractors, I still think that the TPO option is the best product for this roof type. So that's the additional information I have to provide on that. Again, just as a recap, the roof is failing, particularly over the gymnasium area. It was a building that the city got from Montgomery Parks, and at the time it was known to have a very old roof and very old HVAC system, so this is by no means a surprise. We're hoping to delay the additional costs for some of these maintenance items, but the redevelopment is on a slower track. With the ARPA funding, we identified that as a source for taking care of some of the maintenance needs, including air filtration, HVAC, and the roofing. I would just like to add that the building is heavily used, very much used, and we want to make sure that the occupants continue to be able to use all the space, and we want to keep that building functional as best we can until the time in which we're moving forward with a redevelopment.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunzak?
I just want to say I really appreciate you going back and taking a second look at that. I know that took time, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, happy to. Always, never shortage of things you learn.
No, and I think it's really helpful too. I had some other people reach out with additional questions to me, and this isn't just speaking to, I really did have people speaking on behalf, and I think it's very helpful for them to hear what you've looked into that. Thanks. Including the color of the roofing, which I got questions about. Thanks.
Councilmember Gibson?
Yes, you spoke, part of the reason, or part of the concern was how long it would take before a new building is in place. And could you remind me, or maybe update where we are with responses to the RFP for the rec center?
I believe 2 responses were received from the submission or the advertisement for responses. Ira Cowler with the HCD will be coming back to the council with a update or recommendation. I have not heard any more specifics in the review of the application, whether both were comprehensive or whether they were leaning towards one or the other. I don't have any details on that yet.
Is it still open? I mean, in terms of
No,
submission?
it is closed.
It's closed, so we've only gotten 2.
Yep.
Okay.
There was a advertisement and a deadline, and those were the 2 that were received.
Thank
They
you.
did have, what do you call that, pre-bid opening solicitation, so they did have an opportunity for companies to come and discuss and see the building, and yeah. I also wanted to mention that the cover sheet, to Councilmember Fulcher's point, we made a correction to the environmental impact based on her comments and concerns.
Councilmember Fulcher?
Thank you for that. I noticed. Do you have an estimate on how long this is going to take and if it's going to cause any sort of closure of the rec building while it's happening?
One thing good about roofers, they're really quick at what they do because they do not want to have the liability of an unroofed building in the event of weather and rain. So obviously, some of it's dependent on weather. We fully anticipate the work to be done in a day. The existing roof to be removed, the new roof put on. There may be some of the last final finishing, edging, that kind of thing that stretches over into the next day. But the building won't need to be closed when the work's going on. They'll plan based on weather, and it should be just a very long day for the roofing.
And I assume you personally will also be in charge of the estimates for the HVAC, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And have you started that at all or not yet?
Yes, we have. One of the things that we're doing every time we look at any of our heating or types of systems is that facility is using gas. It's a gas and electric unit, electric cooling, gas heat. So one of the things that we are looking to do is replace with non-gas alternatives, so we're moving to a fully electric. So we're just gathering information about whether the building has the electric capacity for that additional electric draw, and it appears that it does, but we'll be working with we have a list of HVAC companies that we work with just for PMs and things like that here, so we start with them and get their recommendations and advice, and then move forward with the plan for specifying the replacement.
And do you have a timeline for I'm just wondering.
That needs to happen before the summer.
That's what I'm thinking. We got to
really
keep those
quick,
kiddos in that rec center during the summer. So
the current status, we've lost a compressor on the unit, so it will not cool sufficiently. So we know we need to have a new system in place before the cooling season. The heating season, it was able to operate on the gas heater, so it's sufficient for the winter. But it is definitely something that we need to replace in the next few months.
thank you for the work that you're doing on this. You do so many worthwhile things for the city, and making sure that the recreation center is up and functioning is really important, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah. We also did add air filtration in that unit, so that was as a result of the pandemic. So we do have standalone portable units in the exercise rooms and the gym, which was took a while to get there, and I know we had those rooms closed as a result of not having sufficient air filtration given the age of the unit, so we've been able to manage that.
Councilmember Small?
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those times where ordinarily I would just stick to the roof, but because someone opened the door in like a legal context, I'm gonna ask a question about the RFP roof nexus. Mr. Eubanks, this may tangentially hit you, but given that there are only two, and that in the context of putting out the RFP, there was additional information about the prospect of maybe taking on the physical plant immediately adjacent to the building. And I don't necessarily know where the process of any of those things are, and I was just curious about whether or not the RFP answers have taken in that prospect into consideration, or if any sort of formal decision was made by the town on potentially procuring that additional property.
I'm not at all expert on that. The only property I was aware of was the wooded lot that's part of the lot itself. I'm not aware of any other property.
It may be helpful, Director Eubanks, because there were aspects regarding land swap possibilities that were included, if I recall correctly, in the RFP. But David, you would know more thoroughly.
Didn't know you were here, sorry. Please.
Apologies.
Thanks, Daryl. So we're still evaluating the two RFP responses that we have. The RFP itself did not include any stipulations or suggestions that, because it's not our parcel, that anyone be required to purchase that property. We left the option to present that as a part of your analysis and inclusion, but there's nothing definitive that we can either say now because the process is still going, or that we included in the RFP itself to suggest that anybody needed to include that parcel as a part of the end product.
Okay. Thank you. And then Daryl, I'm sorry, I had a question about drainage on the roof.
Sure, David.
So, obviously, if the question is, are there any concerns about drainage with regard to the changes in the roof? And do you anticipate having to do anything with regard to that issue in the near term as we move on towards a different building?
No, the existing roof structure has drains within it, and the insulation under the membrane is cantilevered down to those roof drains. And so the new roof will basically follow that same profile. So the insulation that will be put in will be made to direct flow to the drains. They will be replacing the drain pans and the drains as part of the roof replacement. So basically everything, the flashing, the insulation, the roof drains themselves, the drain pans, and how they're tied into the membrane, all of that becomes brand new. So it'll be brand new and fully functioning, and it'll be a requirement that they have to make sure that the roof drains in the appropriate ways to the drains. We won't be adding any drains. There's sufficient drains up there. They just will have to mirror the existing shape and profile of the roof.
Yeah, it's just water. You open something, water makes me nervous because water will find its way. So just checking.
Yeah. One of the things that we were considering was whether or not we could just re-roof again, kind of trying to take a more minimalist approach, cover the existing roof with a, roof surface. But in the investigation into that, every time they cut into the roof surface to explore the subsurface and the insulation was always soaking wet. So basically, everything needs to come off and get replaced. We do have a metal roof surface, so the insulation will go on top of that, and then the membrane above. So it's going to all be removed and then replaced.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so given that this is a single reading ordinance, City Clerk, would it be helpful for us to call the roll on this one?
It would. We usually do for ordinances. And was it moved and seconded, or?
No, not yet, but I just wanted to confirm that you need it. Okay. All right, do I have a second? Second. Okay, Councilmember Small moved, Councilmember Gibson second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fulcher? Aye. Councilmember DeBala?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson? Yes. Councilmember Siemens?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanzak?
Yes.
Councilmember Small?
Aye.
Mayor Searcy?
Aye. Okay, so you've been approved to move forward with replacing the roof on the Recreation Center. Okay, now we're going to enter into our work session on boards and committee appointment recommendations. And so we've had a wonderful subcommittee of council members who've come together to take a look at our applications for a number of our committees. So with that, I will turn things over to Councilmember DeBala, who will walk us through the subcommittee's recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the subcommittee is myself, Councilmember Fulcher, and Councilmember Hanzak. We met on the 14th of February to give all 19 applicants some love. We didn't get all the way through, so we are proposing tonight applications, appointments for Arts and Humanities, for Boards of Elections, Emergency Preparedness, Ethics Commission, Grants Review, and Sustainable Maryland Committee, but we did not get as far as COLTA because we wanted to get staff feedback, and Nuclear Free Committee because we just didn't get to the end of the list. With that said, perhaps the Mayor Pro Tem can read the names of folks who are recommended. Oh, just one last comment. We did use the criteria, the guidelines that the previous council had laid out for going through the different applicants. And so just to remind residents what that is, to balance the committees, look at residency, look at expression of interest by the applicant, look at technical expertise and/or lived experience around the issue the committee deals with, organization and community affiliations, if any, and then look at the balance of the group, diversity and inclusion, and contributions that individual might bring to the group in terms of skills, teamwork, and/or perspective. So that's a lot of pieces to make with the goal of making, hopefully making appointments that will lead to well-functioning and diverse representative committees representing all the different types of people who live here on the issues that we have committees for. So thank you. Councilmember Siemens, do you want to read the list?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll read the recommendations from the subcommittee. The Arts and Humanity Committee is Rick Henry of Ward 3. For Board of Elections, Joseph Goldman from Ward 1. Emergency Preparedness Committee, Frank DiSemino from Ward 4. The Ethics Commission, Mark Sandberg, Ward 1. Grants Review Committee, Demarius Wenjiku, Ward 5. Luis Cleese Wallace, Ward 5. And for Sustainable Maryland Committee, Maggie Holland, Ward 3, and Melinda Ulloa at Ward 5. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the process is next week we will vote on these, and we will also have our recommendations hopefully on the rest of them. Does anybody from the committee, from the subgroup, have a comment? Either Councilmember Fulcher or Hanzak? Anything to add? Okay.
Okay. Great. Councilmember Gibson?
Just a question in terms of the numbers of applicants and the numbers of potential nominees. How does that compare?
There were 19 applications, there are 8 nominees, but there were
Okay, 8.
5, yeah, but there are 2 other committees still. So there were 5 applications for COLTA for 2 slots. And there were 2 applications for nuclear free for 5 slots. So we can't give a full total because we're not done yet. But that gives you an idea.
Thank you.
Councilmember Small?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just, there are a couple of things I want to say about this. The first one is that I'm going to remain curious about the nexus between filling the community committees and interest in the community's existence at any given point. Like at some point, we are going to have to continue to assess whether or not we are providing the right opportunities for people to participate, as opposed to whatever else. And so I just wanted to say that out loud. And then additionally, one of the opportunities of being elected in a municipal position and not in some higher position is to refer people to the bottom of the page on the work session document about the racial equity considerations. And specifically, as you were going through the whole thing, Cindy, I thought it was very well done. But as you sort of started talking about the potential boxes that one might check in any given scenario, we don't necessarily have that information. I know that it's not necessarily something that it would be, whatever. But I was curious about if people did self-identify in those ways, if we could apply that information to our decision-making process.
So most, but not all of the applicants self-identified. The packet of applications has that in it, if they did, that packet that we all got a couple weeks ago. But we didn't make a table. We certainly could, and have in the past, make a table that shows
I'm just a nerd
that.
about that, like matrices, or
So
that's my thing.
taking this table and adding a few more columns, that could be done. And I'm happy to do that informally for you yes. But we did, as a group, we did look at that for every group and every application for which we knew.
I'd like to be clear that I completely am not making any assumptions that you didn't or anything like that. I'm just personally curious.
Yes, will do.
Okay. Well, first, I want to thank Councilmember DeBala, Honzak, and Fulcher for working on this. As a former person that was on some of these subcommittees, it is. I think sometimes people don't realize the amount of thought and effort and debate that goes into making these selections. And I want to thank all of the residents who applied for to be on a committee and to serve. We really appreciate all of you and your willingness to volunteer your time and your talents in support of the city. One question I have is there are some places, like for example, the Arts and Humanities Committee, where it looked like we had 2 vacancies, at least on this cheat sheet that I have.
Yes.
And we're making 1 appointment.
Yes.
So just as a process check, does that mean that we are going to reserve identifying any additional candidates for these committees until we start the next recruitment phase?
Yes.
So if there are residents, okay.
Yes, with, I want to say one exception, where there might be a switch midstream, but it's existing members already.
Okay.
And there was, in at least one case, there was someone that was not a resident of the city.
Okay.
And so it may have looked like there were 2 applications for 2 slots, but then we discovered that person wasn't eligible.
Okay. And so just to remind everyone, you know, we started this process where we would kind of do one massive recruitment effort, I believe, once a quarter? Is it once, twice a year?
Twice a year, and June's a big one.
Yep. And so we do that twice a year. And so the goal really is to make sure that we're notifying residents in the community of when that application period opens again, so that we can make sure that we have as many residents to choose from to participate. But again, thank you all so much for doing this legwork. It's been really helpful.
Thank you, you're welcome. Just one other quick, so there are a couple of people that may not be appointed to anything because there's more people than there are slots. In a couple of cases, the city clerk will be reaching out because it seemed to us that that person might be interested in another group that has space. So there may be a little shuffling around still.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you so much. So now, our last agenda item, and I just want to do a quick check with our city clerk. Is our city attorney on the line?
I don't see him yet, but we could probably text him and make sure
Yep.
he hops
I'll
on.
shoot him a note. Okay, perfect. So just want to do a quick check. This is our last agenda item, and I know we've made a pact to make sure that we give ourselves, when we hit around that 9 o'clock mark, to give ourselves a break. We can do a break now while we ask for our city attorney to join the call. So if folks are okay, we'll take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. All right, thank you all so much. We are going to reconvene our meeting. We are now on work session, item number, what's this, is 3? Item number 3 on our agenda, discussion of city attorney contract amendment fees. We are joined today by the city attorney, Skip Cornbrooks. And so with that, I will kind of, Skip, if you wouldn't mind just providing the council with just a general overview of this item in terms of your fees and the adjustment that we'll need to make.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you to address this matter. As you may know, the firm entered into a contract with the city on January 3rd, 2020 to provide the full range of city attorney services. At that time, our hourly rate was $175 per hour for partners and $150 per hour for associates, which even then was well below the market rate for the services provided. Under the contract terms, the city and the firm agreed to meet every fall beginning in 2021 to discuss the firm's rates. In order to meet the contractual requirement, I met with Mr. Fox, then the city manager, to discuss the rates. I informed Mr. Fox that we would not be seeking a rate increase for 2022 for a variety of different reasons. The city was coming out of COVID, as was everybody else, and there was a lot of reasons within the city why it would not be in the best interest of the city to seek a rate increase at that time. And I notified the mayor and council in a series of correspondence that the contractual requirement to meet had been met. And I proposed in that correspondence a rate increase, $25 per hour for partners and associates beginning January 1st, 2023. The timing of that was to match our commitment not to seek a rate increase in 2022, but also to allow it to be considered as part of the budget process in the spring of 2022. In the fall of 2022, I spoke with Mr. Fox again to meet the contractual requirement. And at that time, I learned for the first time from Mr. Fox that the increase had been budgeted for beginning January 1st, 2023. And we discussed an additional rate increase for the partner rate only beginning July 1st, 2023 of $25 an hour, which would bring the partner rate to $225. The associate rate would remain at $175 if the increase is approved for January 1st. Mr. Fox inquired for budgeting purposes if I anticipated if there would be an additional rate increase in the next fiscal year. And I indicated that I thought perhaps $10 would be appropriate as a placeholder, given everything that's going on with the economy and inflation. And that's a summary of those conversations with one addition. On October 3rd, 2022, I sent correspondence to the mayor and council summarizing all of that information. And so now before you is a contract amendment for you to consider that would put into effect the proposed rate increases taking effect retroactive to January 1st, 2023.
Thank you for that, City Attorney Cornbrooks. Quick question. So the increase to the 175, because I recognize, and I actually kind of remember, but, years of the pandemic were a bit of a blur, that you did come before council to let us know that we were, per the terms and conditions of our contract, there was supposed to be an escalation or reevaluation of the fees. You all agreed to not do that, but I guess what I'm wondering now is the amount that the fee that we have right now taking into account what would have been, like, so what this particular fee is the fee that, given we had the reprieve during the pandemic in 2022, is this rate based on what we would have been paying in 2023 regardless? Does that question make sense?
If I understand it correctly, I think what you're asking, Mayor, is if we had raised the rates in 2021, would you be at the 200 and 175? I don't know that that would be the case. I think that it could have been, but what I would say, I think maybe the best way to answer your question, or the thrust of your question, is, as far as I'm aware, even at the rate that would go into effect on July 1st, it's still below the market rate for the services being provided.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. Like, what would be the, we just blacked out our screen. Perfect. That was going to be my next question regarding the market rate. Councilmember Honzak?
I took the liberty of just making a little table too, just to kind of get a sense of inflation rates, and then interviewed an economist today to make sure I was doing that right. Just because I know this is going to come up again and again, not just in relation to your rates, but all kinds of contracts. And I just thought I'd share with council and with you so that everybody's on the same page of what I come up with, was that if we base it on sort of the standard inflation rate of 1.4 in 2020, 7% in 21, and 6.4% in 2022, and then we're looking at least 7% right now, but it might go down. Then those rates, by the time we get to here, would be 217 for partner, 186 for associates, and 117 for clerks.
There you go.
If any, I just want to throw those numbers out there. That is not to say that your rates are too high or too low or anything thereby, because like you said, you're below market rate. Skip, I just wanted to throw those numbers out there for point of reference.
Yeah.
And
I
up for
appreciate
discussion about whether that was even a good methodology, but I thought it was worth looking at to see what you would have been owed had we gone up each year, right? Which we didn't. Does anyone want those numbers again, or did y'all?
It might be helpful to repeat.
Okay, I got, right now, it would be, if we were going with the 1 month rate of the, or sorry, the 2 months of the year, be 217 for partner, that's as of right this minute, 186 associates, and 117 for clerks. Anyway, I'm happy to share this table. I was questioning my methodology initially, and then I thought it's something just worth looking at and considering as we throw around numbers and thinking about what this means. It doesn't, to me, Skip, and it gets to Mayor Searcy's question, we're not really back paying you for the time that you worked with high inflation rates the last few years. So I don't know how we take care of that in a fair way, but it's something to think about.
Councilmember DeBala?
Yes, thank you. 2 questions. One for the city attorney. So in effect, we are amending the contract with your firm to reflect the rates that you had already let us know about over the last few emails.
Councilmember DeBala, that is the contract amendment that is in front of you, and it was prepared based on the fact that other than the communications that I had sent to council, and the communication I had received back from Mr. Fox indicating that it was approved, that the January 1st rate increases were budgeted for, that was the only information I had to go on.
Got
So
it.
obviously the contract amendment can be adjusted and would need to be adjusted based on whatever council approved.
But that's just the point is for the council to vote on these dollars, agreements that you these dollar proposals that you've put forth to the city manager over the last couple of rounds. Great. And my second question is just to check in with the deputy city manager collective and see if you have comments on either the proposal or the need to do it in the contract as opposed to just let it be an email, if you have any comments.
I don't have any comments on the rates. I think an amendment to the contract is an appropriate step to
I think
take.
that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Gibson?
Reference was made to market rate. I don't know what the market rates are. Is that something, as we're looking at the picture here? Did I miss that?
No, but I haven't.
So I
It's
just,
more.
to have a full picture, we're comparing it to inflation. We might as well compare it to market rate. Again, I'm just sort of trying to get a full picture. Point of reference.
Is there some kind of independent market rate for Maryland
No.
attorneys who work for municipalities? Or in this region?
That I am not aware of. The city attorney, is there any fee data that's available regarding other firms that perhaps are in the area?
So, Mayor, obviously, firms don't tend to share the information with each other about what they're charging. But there are occasionally a municipality will do an informal survey. I also have what I would call informed speculation about what other firms are charging. My distinct impression is that we are considerably below market rate.
Okay. Councilmember Small?
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to say, we're getting to the point that I was going to make about this process. And one of the things that's been interesting about being on this side of this wood paneling is that I do have pre-existing knowledge about some of these processes. If you'll allow me a second, Randy, I'd like to run it down to you. So short answer is, when I was looking through this thing and I looked at the number as like client number, whatever, and having done this before, I was like, that's an honorable man. And that's just honestly the case. Without getting into too much numerically, I would just say it's been, 2 years since I was in a position where I could rely on my memory, but I can tell you with certainty that the number that I know is lower than that number. I would also say that in the analysis of what we've been doing as council people in the assessment of Skip in particular's activity, there are some things that we discussed in administrative meetings about the processes related to contact with the city attorney's office that I would suspect will probably change or could be definitely streamlined just by definition. And I would argue that if there is some sort of nexus between what Councilmember Honzak was saying and making you whole, I guess, in the content to just randomly throw some legal stuff in the mix. I would personally be in favor of doing that, because both as a person that gets to put Esquire on the back of my name, and from experience as on both sides of that bench too, you comport yourself in a manner that I think that we should keep.
All right. So thank you, council members, for all of your feedback. And again, I can't stress enough how appreciative I've been to be able to work with the city attorney. And listening to my colleagues, it seems pretty clear. You don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? That the fees that are coming before us are fair. Again, to Councilmember Small's point, the devil's in the details in terms of making sure that when we are counting our hours appropriately, right? So it's not necessarily the fee, it's how we're working this firm like no one's business. And so making sure that as we are thinking through our priorities as a council and working with our staff and really trying to work towards tightening the reins a little bit in terms of the tasks that are going before our firm. I think if there's a question around cost savings, that would probably be what it is. But the actual fees that are in the contract, I agree with my colleague. I think they're pretty fair. So in terms of steps, we will be voting on the amended contract. And I just lost a good piece of paper. We will have next week a single reading ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to the city attorney's contract. And again, that is based on the fee structure that we've just discussed. Okay, and seeing that there are no other council lights, and this is our last agenda item. Whoa, this is a record.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, damn. Oh, my bad.
I just wanted to ask, to clarify that it's meant to be retroactive to
January
1
of 2023.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to restate my motion as a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a second. All right, so we are done for tonight. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Ken.